can I just say, I really hope that other people who, like me, who are not metalheads but are listening to this conversation are getting as much as I am out of the lists of types of metal and names of metal bands.
Awesome.
Because they're so wonderful.
Yeah,
It's just the best. It's just like, oh yeah, well, when it gets really inky and then you're like, all right, great. It's like I don't drink, but I want to hear a sommelier talk about wine.
Yeah.
Agriculture, welcome to Bullseye. I'm so happy to have the four of you on the show. You're setting an all-time record for most guests on one episode of Bullseye, so I'm going to try and direct questions by name and fail.
Okay.
Great.
Agriculture is a band name that reads both like a parody of a black metal band name and contains within it the spirit of a black metal band name, or like a joke on, like an ironic joke on, not a parody of, but an ironic joke on, but also has this sort of like ancient elegance that reflects the black metal aesthetic. Was there like a whiteboard at some point and you're crossing out Bloodstream or whatever?
That would have been cool. It was like an early idea to go with agriculture. I think kind of for the reasons that you're getting at. I don't know if I'd call it ironic, but there's definitely like an element of tongue-in-cheek to it, or maybe playfulness is how I would put it. And I think that part of what we liked about the name is that it kind of captures the way our approach is towards metal in particular, but sort of music in general. You know, that there is this kind of silliness that's either implicit or explicit in like metal, you know, kind of the way there is in horror films or something like that. You know, there is like this extremeness that there's a bit of a wink to it always, even when people are taking it super seriously, or at least that's how I think about it. And so but there also is like a lot of seriousness there. So you can kind of like think of those as two sides of the same coin, which I think is kind of how all of our music and stuff operates, is that there's you know, we're being really serious, but maybe we're smiling while we're doing it. You know what I mean?
I mean, metal in general and black metal in particular are like on the face kind of absurd.
Totally.
Like it's a totally ridiculous thing. And you would think that if you said that you're smiling about it, it would be because you're deflating it in some way. And it really doesn't, if it's very much the opposite of that in your records. Like there is a real honoring of the solemnity and sincerity of metal, that like it is this thing that where you're just trying to create the most extreme sound to reflect this extremity in feeling.
Totally. And thanks for saying that. I think that's sort of how we think about it, right? But I think that there is I think a big thing for us as we were figuring out, you know, when you start a band, there's like, you don't know anything about what it's going to be. You're just playing music with your friends, right? And, you know, before we'd played our first show or done anything, or even talked about taking it seriously, you know, where you're at this fun place with every band that you start where you're just like, you know, like a totally blank canvas. It could be anything. And you can imagine yourself being super famous, the Beatles, or you can imagine yourself being like, you know, the most underground, coolest band ever. And there's this kind of like, because you have no idea how anybody's going to react to what you're doing. So you get to do this kind of like character creation thing. You know, it's almost like the beginning of a video game where you pick like, you know, what hairstyle you're going to have and what ridiculous name you're going to have and whatever.
Mr. T hairstyle and Mr. T.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so like there is this kind of self-invention that you get to do, but it's fun because with a band you do it collaboratively with other people who and everybody, you know, brings their own idea of what the band is based on, you know, where they're sitting in it. So it's this really fun imagination exercise that's very playful and also like more playful than you usually get to be as a grown-up. Like we're grown-ups, you know what I mean? All of us are in our 30s, which is funny. And I think we all were when we started the band, or maybe me and Leah were in our late 20s. But, you know, it was like there is a little bit of, I don't know, you don't have the same kind of attitude towards it as you do, you know, when you're starting a band when you're 15 or when you're 19 or something like that. It just feels a little bit less, the stakes feel less high.
Yeah. Leah,
yeah. I think there's like a thing I think about that's like, yeah, if we want to write a song about God or about death or something like that, it kind of reminds me of like, we have Richard who can play amazing guitar solos, and you don't hear guitar solos like that much in like secular music. Not, you know, like if you're in underground metal and extreme metal, you'll hear a guitar solo like someone shred. So what I think about with that is like, we're writing songs, we're writing a set of music, and it's like, how do we set the stage for that so that we can actually get there to where like we're letting Richard shred as much as he can, you know, and like we're getting there in a way that makes sense, you know, and I think that's part of it too, is like you don't get to hear a lot of music like seriously consider some of the topics we're talking about, and like we're in our 30s, but it's important to us that we're like engaged like in a physical way on stage when we play. How do we make it so we're 30-year-olds jumping around on stage and it's like exciting and not like not just embarrassing? And yeah, I think like metal, horror movies, professional wrestling is like a great place where it's just like, it's like these are fulfilling like real needs for their audiences, you know, like, but in these very like playful ways.
I mean, I think a lot of metal is ecstatic. It may not be ecstatic in the sense of being happy thematically, but in terms of generating ecstasy, an ecstatic state, like being transcendental in some way. Well, yeah, why else would you be that loud and that intense?
Totally. One of the things that's, I think, particularly fun about black metal is, and just, you know, I imagine you have some listeners who aren't super familiar with what black metal is, but just like, you know, it's this kind of subgenre of metal that has a kind of storied history. The second wave of it is really famous because it's all these really, really angry Norwegian teenagers who did a bunch of crime, and there was murder and church burning. And it's a very like tabloidy story. And they look amazing because, you know, they're these tall, blonde, long-haired, you know, beautiful Norwegians with crazy corpse paint, and they're burying their clothes in the mud. And
corpse paint is like the white and black facial decoration. Those sort of like drawings, like a professional wrestler.
Yeah, like think Kiss, but
or
like
Alice
if it was
Cooper.
Yeah, but like cool.
Yeah.
A little more evil.
Yeah. Well, and that's another funny side of it is like the Alice Cooper and the Kiss, like, and even like Marilyn Manson kind of riffing off of this more serious music and making it very campy and popular. I mean, this is a side note, but the thing that's hilarious, we listened to Kiss not that long ago in the van, and it was just this hilarious thing. It was like, this is crazy. This is not this. This is like this is like soft rock.
And in some way, it's a reach towards ecstasy simply to accept, yes, this song is about letting Satan as a goat inside my brain. And if you are able to reach the point of embracing that wholeheartedly, that understanding, yes, that is part of this experience I am doing, then that is you being open enough to experience something that is at that level of intensity.
Totally.
Rather than holding it at arm's length.
That's a great way to put it.
Metal historically has been about all these kinds of refinement. You know, one of the reasons that in the 21st century metal has like 75,000 different subcategories, you know, that are all on decision trees or flow charts or whatever, like how much grind is in this and how much, is because all of these aesthetics are so precisely refined.
Yeah.
So what is the appeal for you of putting a saxophone solo on a record, or putting, you know, Richard, sometimes you have a guitar solo on one of the songs on the new album that truly sounds like it could be off of a Sunset Strip Band's album in 1986.
Yeah. Now we're talking.
Like truly, I was like, whoa, he's going wholeheartedly into this.
Yeah.
So what's the appeal of pushing out beyond the doctrinaire?
I think in underground genres and subgenres of music, you get a lot of that hyper refinement and that sort of thing where you almost can't derive meaning from it unless you're immersed in the culture. And I think that comes from a bit of an attitude of gatekeeping, but it's a gatekeeping that functions with the aesthetics of the music itself. So in hardcore subculture or something, it's like you play a punk beat a different way and it's suddenly signifying anarcho-punk. And that comes with a whole like politics of leftism or something like that. It happens in dance music too, like electronic dance music, techno. It's like certain sounds signify a city. It could be like Chicago, Detroit, New York, London, whatever. And it's like that then relates to the scene of the city. And like in London, it's like jungle and drum and bass and hardcore, like that all related to a politics of like working class musicians. And that's something I'm very interested in as a musician and artist, is like understanding those the way those signifiers function and thinking about genre in that way. Like the guitar solo you're talking about, I think you're talking about the song Flee, which has very intentionally has a lot of sort of mixed genre play going on throughout it. It's a song about suicidality, like depression, difficulties of queer life and stuff like that. And when Richard like came up with that guitar solo and when we were working on it in the studio, it became this really like shocking moment for me that I really loved. And we decided to lean into that sort of like the sleaziness of it by like mixing it completely dry, having it like sit on top. And so, and it's in a lot of contrast to like some of the treatment of the vocals, which are very like cavernous and sort of do like relate back to the true cult black metal.
Were you in metal bands before this band?
I was, yes. So I love metal. Metal came to me at a very important time in my life as a teenager. So I grew up in the East Bay, and you know, like the legacy of thrash is big. You know, I used to practice in a space that at the time Testament also rehearsed in. So like I was in and around that.
Can I just say, I really hope that other people who, like me, who are not metalheads but are listening to this conversation are getting as much out of me as I am out of the lists of types of metal and names of metal bands.
Awesome.
Because they're so wonderful. It's just the best. It's just like, oh yeah, well, when it gets really inky and then you're like, all right, great. It's like I don't drink, but I want to hear a sommelier talk about wine. Kern, what did metal mean to you as a kid?
Kind of nothing. I actually as a teenager, it was pretty low on my list of interests musically, because I just was always interested in avoiding genre. I was like, I played in a band that was like a heavy kind of metal band at the end of college, and my goal in that band was to keep subverting the guitarist's attempts to make it a metal band. And he accepted that, and it worked. And then, years went by. I played more extreme noise, like I had a harsh noise duo, and just got really into playing fast and loud. And then when this came up, I really like playing blast beats. And
what does blast beats mean?
Oh, it's just where it's like 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2.
Like everything at once, kind of.
You just kind of do that really fast. It's like not a beat. It's like more of a bee like flapping its wings.
But it is funny because if you slow it down, it sounds like a polka.
Yeah.
Not joking. It's literally a polka beat sped up.
Which to me was the closest I could get to feeling like Tony Williams in the Miles Davis like second grade quintet, when just playing these like really fast like bebop things. And I don't really know how to do that, but I always thought that was the coolest style of drumming. And I was like, this is pretty close. I just get to play super fast and accent melodies and things like that. And so that was just exciting. I don't know. I just got really into playing like really like a lot of physical exertion and making that happen. And I don't know. I've learned also kind of similar to you a lot about the whole history of the genre and everything, and seeing how that fits into that. But my favorite thing at shows is when people are like, oh, like, do you have a jazz background? And I'm like, wow, I'm so glad that came through at this metal show, which is always surprising to me and delightful.
When you're trying to blast people.
Yeah, you just like go in. I mean, so many of those things, like Elvin Jones playing like that great video of My Favorite Things, where it's like, it's like pounding into the drums. And I love seeing that happen in there. So I get to like access that through this music.
What about for you, Leah?
I was always a punk. Didn't really like get deep into metal until much later.
Punk rock world, at least big swaths of the punk rock world, especially in the United States, have a reputation for being super queer friendly. What was your experience of that as you got into the metal world, which can be like a pretty intensely mask coded thing?
Yeah. I mean, I'm coming into the metal world at a time where like, actually, like, especially in black metal, oddly enough, there are a lot more queer people doing it. I think that happens in certain scenes, like sub scenes of metal. I mean, metal is just so popular and so vast that like there are so many people involved in it, that there are so many circles within it that like have no overlap. I mean, and I think there are a lot of queer people doing metal these days, and that also tends to be aligned with people who are thinking about metal in new ways that it hasn't been thought about. I think a lot of the more experimental metal and heavy music going on is often very queer friendly, queer produced. I think a lot of noise music, there's a long history of just like trans people and gender divergent and queer people in noise music that goes back to its foundation. I mean, bands like Coil or Throbbing Gristle or things like that. We're very lucky to sort of have our audiences and our like-minded artists and labels. Like shout out to the Flenser. Jonathan is really great at putting on lots of interesting queer artists, and yeah.
I think there's also this is true for almost all popular music, but in a distinctive way for metal, this kind of relationship with adolescence. And my experience is that trans people, especially ones who have transitioned after an initial adolescence, have a very different relationship with adolescence. Was that your experience? I mean, even just like a physical relationship for those who have had gender affirming medical care. But like, what was your relationship with your own adolescence and the kind of like adolescent markers of metal music, drawing logos on notebooks and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, there's a term in between trans people and trans communities of you start hormones and assuming you're starting hormones in your adult life or even late adolescence, we call it like second puberty, right? And so it is like a lot of what you experience physically is like going through puberty again, and going through puberty also brings up all these social changes for anyone. I mean, and social, cultural, like if you do hormones, you feel your feelings differently. Like a lot changes. And I mean, I think along with that, a lot of trans people, when they go through that, they suddenly feel like themselves for the first time, right? And I think an experience there is like, I mean, I didn't know I was trans until my mid-20s. Once I did, it came very fast to me and was just something I couldn't be more sure of. But after that point, like coming out, starting hormones, doing all of that, then I look back on most of my life before that, and it's a bit of a blur. Like, it's pretty dissociative. I'd like have trouble accessing memories and experiences, like, and I always had. And then my life after that point is much more lucid and present and aware. And regardless of my age now, it's like I want to have experiences that I felt like I missed out on when I was younger, and when I was the age a lot of people do have those experiences. And whether that's dating or whether that's music or like cultural artifacts, like what movies I get into, all of that, it's like a lot of it can feel very new. Yeah, I spent a long time really trying to make sense of these masculine aesthetics, this like being in a masculine world, and it never made sense to me, but I have all of that practice. Now let's like make it make sense. Like let's use it in a way that like feels good and I'm comfortable with who I am and can incorporate that, you know?
What do you guys do to protect your voices or prepare your voices when you're screaming and growling?
You just kind of figure out what works. Like the same way that like everybody's singing voice is distinct, everybody's screaming voice is distinct. So Leah and I scream in hella different ways. Like my scream is actually really quiet. It's more or less a whisper that I'm amplifying, kind of, and the mic does a lot of the work. Leah's scream is hurts everybody's ears.
It's so loud.
It's wild. So it's like, yeah, so so they're totally different. So neither of us has taken like coaching on how to do it. But I don't know. A lot of it for me was when I was trying to figure out how to do it, like just screaming in the car. Like I'd be driving and just like practicing and seeing what worked, and what hurt my voice and like what made me feel like I was going to throw up, and and then over time, like a lot of it we learned, I think, just by playing shows. And that's also, sorry, just one thing I wanted to throw out, just in case there's anybody listening who's like young and in a band and thinking about how to like do stuff. Like, I think like for us, like the way we figured out everything that we've done as a band is by doing it live. Like, I think like doing the DIY touring thing is the most important thing you can do. It's just like, the first tours that we did, we were playing in like, we played like on a patio in Nevada City, like with a singer-songwriter who played for, I'm not joking, like an hour and a half. Just like, or like, we'd play in like pizza places or whatever, just like really like that is where we learned everything that works and doesn't work. Like not just like as performers, but also as like, how it feels to scream in a space, how you work. So it's just like, I don't know. I really feel like I teach music too, and just like something I'm always trying to tell my students is just like the only way to like just be in a band and play shows. Like you can't do it like the band thing you can't just do in your house by yourself. Like there is an inherently social aspect to it, which is really wonderful.
I think that heavy music, especially the heaviest of heavy music, is so much, I mean, unlike any other kind of music except maybe some kinds of dance music, so much about the physical experience of the music. I did a show once, a comedy show, the night after Sun, the metal band, played. And all the people that worked at that theater who see every kind of music, all they could talk about was the physical experience of being in a room while that music made them vomit or whatever from its sheer physical intensity.
Yeah, totally. I think it's really, I mean, I think that's also like a big thing that one of the things that's really been cool about how much we've gotten to tour the past couple of years is that like, most people, our age are not going to shows all the time anymore. I think a lot of people like maybe do that in their like early 20s or when you're a teenager or whatever. But it's been amazing to be like at concerts all the time, because I think there's not just the physical aspect of the music, but there's also the physical aspect of gathering in a public space to experience something together, which is, I think, increasingly a rare way of experiencing any kind of art or entertainment, but especially music, which has moved from, hi-fi systems to like headphones, which is the most like insular way you could possibly listen. And I think that's great. I like listening to music on headphones, but there is such a profound experience of being in a room packed with other people listening to a band do anything, but particularly when the music itself is heavy. It is this kind of like it's a very like meat-based experience. It makes you feel very embodied in an almost primitive way that I think is really, really important. And there's obviously a communal aspect to that too. I'll just say like on this last tour that we did, we toured with this band called Knoll, Knoll. Amazing, amazing band. Some of the most like truly extreme in a way that like we're definitely not. And, it's like 45 minutes of just like wall of noise with the most intricate guitar playing you've ever heard. And this like Jamie, their lead singer, is just like literally looks like Nosferatu and is doing this crazy screeching and whatever. And we seen them every night. And one night I was like, you know what? It sounds great in this venue. I'm just going to go to the pit and like really listen to it and be part of the crowd. And that was such a wonderful experience of just being like, oh, I remember why people love this and need this. Like even though I get to do this every night and get to perform this way and do this, like actually being involved in the crowd in that energy was just like, oh yeah, like this is so profoundly wonderful,
Well, Agriculture, I'm so grateful to the four of you for coming in and talking to me. It was so nice to get to know you.
Thank you. It was a real pleasure
Yeah,
being
thanks
here.
for having us.
It's an honor.
So great.
Yeah.